Hi, everyone, and welcome to Science Prodigy Session 26, Natural Disasters, Part 4. Today, we're going to be learning about wildfires and drought. So if you are new, we have a couple of rules, of course. Always to use proper manners and etiquette. If you have a question, of course, you can type it in the chat, and in participants, you can raise your hand. Our classes go like this. We start off with our warm-up, and going over the warm-up is always necessary as it helps us to review our previous lesson. Then we do the lesson we're supposed to do, today's lesson. So today we're going to be learning about wildfires and droughts. And then after the lesson, there'll be a test. After reviewing the test, of course, we'll have a game or demonstration. And then sometimes we have a poll. Okay, so let's start today's warm-up. You can type your answers in the chat. You can choose either the landslide warm-up, mudslide warm-up, or the avalanche warm-up. Okay, I'll give you guys 2 minutes for that. Okay, let's go over today's warm-up. So if you know the answer for the landslide warm-up, please raise your hand in participants. Okay, so anyone for landslide warm-up? Okay, Ryan?
Three natural causes of a landslide are volcanic eruptions, earthquakes, and ocean tremors. And then
you know 2 human causes?
Two human causes are construction and too much traffic activity.
Perfect, good job. So too much traffic activity, if too much traffic activity causes landslides very rarely, but only if the way does break, for example, a bridge. Construction can cause landslides a lot because as they are drilling into the road, it is a lot of tremors and shaking, which can cause landslides. And of course, the natural causes landslides are tremors and earthquakes. But you could have also said deposition from erosion. That's one of the biggest ones because it can build up earth material or debris at places, which will eventually just give away, and because of the intense pressure, just give away and form a landslide. Okay, so does anyone know the answer for the mudslide warm-up? Please raise your hand. Okay, Adam?
Wait, for what warm-up?
The mudslide.
Oh, the mudslide or the toe? The trail? And what's its name?
You don't remember it? That's perfectly okay. Do you know the second part of it?
I mean, I said two.
Do you know where are each of them located?
Huh? Sorry, it froze.
Okay, so that's okay.
The
3 parts are the toe, shelves, and the main scarp. As you said, 2 of them are correct. The toe is located at the bottom of the mudslide. The main scarp is the topmost part, and the shelves are in between, which are usually just depressions or increase in height because of the all of the rocks that just pile up on. Okay, does anyone have an answer for the avalanche warm-up? Okay, Vivon?
I know one type of avalanche, and that's called the cornice fall avalanche.
Perfect, that's exactly correct. Do you know one fact about a cornice fall?
No.
Oh, okay, that's okay. So you could have said that they are like a fatal attraction of the mountains. They are elegant, so they can be in really nice shapes and snow structures, which are formed by the wind drifting snow onto the downwind side of an obstacle such as a ridgeline of a glacier. You could have said wet avalanches, slush avalanches, slab avalanches, loose snow avalanches, icefall avalanches, and glide avalanches. Okay, so that was today's warm-up. Good job on those who did answer them. Very good job. But let's continue on to today's lesson. Okay, so today's lesson is on wildfires and drought. So what's a wildfire? A wildfire is a fire that burns out of control in a natural area, like a forest, grassland, or prairie. Wildfires can start from natural causes, such as lightning, but they are usually caused by humans, such as campers or hikers who did not put out their campfire properly. Wildfires spread quickly, burning brush, trees, and homes in its path. They can also affect natural resources, such as soil, animals, and the forests. They can also destroy homes and put people's lives in danger. A wildfire, also known as a wild land fire, forest fire, vegetation fire, grass fire, peat fire, or bush fire, or hill fire, is an uncontrolled fire often occurring in the wildland areas, but which can also consume houses or agricultural resources. Wildfires often begin unnoticed, but they spread quickly, igniting brush, trees, and homes. What causes a wildfire? So some of the main causes of wildfire include lightning, human carelessness, arson, volcanic eruptions, and pyroclastic clouds from an active volcano. Heat waves, droughts, and cyclical climate changes such as El Nino and La Nina can also have a dramatic effect on the risk of wildfires. Although more than 4 out of every 5 wildfires are caused by people rather than natural causes. So here are some causes of wildfires. One of the really big ones are campfires. Sometimes fires are needed for various things during camping, and they can start wildfires if not put out properly. Smoking, some people smoke while driving, biking, or walking. Sometimes the buds are not properly extinguished and thrown away. The bud may end up starting a fire. We have lightning. A good number of wildfires are started by lightning. When a lightning strikes, it can produce a spark. It can strike trees, power cables, rocks, and many other things, and just set them off. We have burning debris. Refuse, junk, and yard waste are common items that are permitted to burn in many places. People are therefore very quick to set anything ablaze as a way of disposing of them, but that can get out of hand and start a fire. Accidents or equipment failures, car crashes, gas balloons, lawnmowers, and many other equipment have been known to start fires when they go wrong. There's also fireworks. Fireworks are banned in many places because of their explosive nature and high potential to start a fire. Then there's arson. This is the act of setting fire to a property, piece of land, or anything with the intention of causing damage. A person who does this is called an arsonist. Arson specialists believe that many fires are started by arsonists and may account for about 30% of all wildfire causes and cases. How do wildfires start? Wildfires and every single type of fire arises out of 3 ingredients: the fuel, heat, and oxygen. Oxygen is readily available in the air, so that just leaves fuel and heat. The fuel is anything that will burn, including brush, grass, trees, and even houses. The drier the fuel, the more easily it burns. The last component, Heat burns the fuels and desiccates or dries up the surrounding area as the fire spreads. A source of heat hits receptive fuel that's dry enough to burn. In the right conditions, above 3 factors are all it takes to set a wildfire in motion. So the drier the fuel, the more easily it burns. So lots of wood pieces and fallen down trees have wood which aren't that moisturized, which means either they haven't been rained much or it's not moisture or the soil is extremely dry underneath them. So because they're extremely dry, maybe because of a sudden dip, sudden high in the temperature and less precipitation, and there's suddenly, it's not that humid or moisture, it's suddenly super duper dry, what can happen is this becomes a perfect fuel for a fire. And if the conditions are right, if the heat, for example, if the suns aren't the main cause because it's too less heat. But for example, if a campfire is going on right next to this big fire, if it's not extinguished properly, what can happen is that some of the sparks of the fire before getting extinguished can hit our fuel source here. And once this is extinguished, once this part of the fire is extinguished, then what can happen is that the rest of it, the sparks might not have cleared up completely and can light this fuel part on fire. And once there is so much heat that the whole wood can become into a fire, it can transport really quickly using other dry objects nearby. So here's the science of a wildfire. The interaction of 3 elements is needed for the creation of a fire. If one element is removed, the fire will extinguish. Heat allows fire to spread by evaporating moisture in fuels, allowing it to ignite and travel more easily. Oxygen, 16% is required. Oxygen supports the oxidation process, creating heat and gases. Fuel, giving the fire a burnable material, allowing the fire to advance. Now, one thing about this is that when you can just notice that you need every single one of these 3 things when just lighting a normal matchstick. For example, you need the heat, the oxygen, and the fuel. When you light a matchstick right by the matchbox, it creates friction and heat. So that's number 1. So we already have heat from there. Oxygen is all present in the air, so that's there. And then fuel is there from the matchstick. Now, the only problem is that once you blow it out, what you do is that you blow carbon dioxide, and it also removes that oxygen which is needed. And without the oxygen, as soon as one of the 3 things is gone, the other 2 cannot continue. And for example, if there is still oxygen and heat, but no fuel, for example, if the matchstick just burns out completely, then it will also stop. And lastly, if it's oxygen and fuel, but no heat, then it won't work because, for example, if you just put it in a freezer, it just freezes it and it also helps to lower down the heat. And even though there's still fuel and oxygen, it won't work. So you need every single one of these 3 things for fires to occur. Okay. Factors that make wildfires burn more. Wind. Winds direct or change direction of fires to new areas with new fuels. Additionally, they provide fresh supplies of oxygen, a key ingredient of fire to the situation. Wildfires usually move faster uphill than downhill, and the steeper the slope, the faster they burn. This is because steeper slopes tend to have lots of fuel in close proximity, and the wind action is much more aggressively uphill. Then we have temperature. Conditions with higher temperatures tend to absorb moisture from fuels and make them conductive to catch fire. Then there's humidity. Fuels in location with high humidity and rainfall tend to be damp and moist. Humidity is the amount of water vapor in the air. The higher it is, the higher the moisture in the fuels there, and less likely they are to catch fire. Now, of course, this is kind of weird because you would think fires travel faster downhill, but actually they are traveling uphill. Factors that make wildfires burn more. Times and seasons. In the US, the summer stretch registers lots of fires. That is because the summer heat will make fuels drier and provide richer oxygen than the winter season. Fuels. The ease at which wildfires spread also depends on the fuel composition. Trees and vegetation with lots of moisture tend to slow down fires than drier vegetation, such as dry grass, dead leaves, tree needles, brush, and small trees. Additionally, some vegetation with high oils and resins aid combustion and makes fires burn with more ease. The space between fuels. Wildfires burn more and spread faster if there are more fuels in close proximity. If fuels are sparsely distributed or are patchy, the fires tend to slow down. This is why a common method of ending a fire is to create a ring of space around it. How do wildfires spread? Ignition of fire is only the beginning. For a spark to grow into a sustained wildfire, there must be a perfect combination of factors, such as dry conditions and really strong winds. And because of climate change, dry conditions are lasting longer, and in turn, causing longer fire seasons. The change in our climate, perpetuated by human-made greenhouse gas emissions, extend the windows of the annual fire season. But wildfires also burn faster and hotter simply because there is more fuel to burn. Mid-November of 2018 was dry enough to perpetuate the most deadly and destructive fire in California state history. 2018 Camp Fire in Butte County, California destroyed almost the entire town of Paradise. In total, 86 people died. So definitely they can cause very intense things and can kill people, as they can be fatal. So how do firefighters put them out? Forest fires can be enormous in size and may quickly change directions. They can move over 6 miles per hour and can jump over natural gaps such as rivers and roads. Modern firefighters are well trained and know how to control forest fires. Two of the main techniques are used in controlling forest fires are fire break and airdrop. Fire break. One of the best ways to stop a fire is to get rid of the fuels, for example, trees, grass, etc. That is helping it to burn. Firefighters will often remove the fuel in a long line ahead of where the fire is advancing. This line is called a fire break. When the fire reaches the fire break, it runs out of fuel and stops spreading. Firefighters use a tool known as the Pulaski. It is a combination of an axe and a hoe used to dig a fire line, which is a fire break. How do firefighters put them out? Our next type is airdrop. Sometimes firefighters will use airplanes and helicopters to drop water or special firefighting chemicals on fires from the air. These aircrafts can carry thousands of gallons of liquid or gel to drop on hard to reach areas of the fire. So in our first three pictures, we can clearly see how airdrop works. I think you might have seen it in plane movies or in documentaries. So in this first one, we can see that, of course, it's a lot of water that they are pouring on top of a fire. But even with all of this water, it still might not extinguish the fire. Now, in our second one, we have a very, very enormous large fire. And to extinguish it, you'll see that all of this water is thousands, hundreds of thousands of gallons. But it's still not going to be enough to extinguish the fire because you need way more water than fire, of course. And in our third image, we see that when a plane is in fact trying to go across a fire. So this plane over here is not going to pour water. This is a passenger plane, a Boeing 737, which is traveling. So it spots a fire right here, but it cannot pour water. But you can clearly see that this could be affected by all this smoke at any time, which could make the plane either crash into fires, which is definitely no surviving it, and could be fatal, or it could just mess up the direction and could be going in the wrong direction. In our fourth image over here, we see that the people are trying to make a fire break, and this weapon, this tool over here is a Pulaski, which is used to help to make the fire break. So the Pulaski is a combination of an axe, which you see on this side, and a hoe on this side. How can wildfires be helpful? So you might think that they kill people, they cause damage to houses, they put many people in money debt. So how can they be helpful? Wildfires are actually essential and needed to the continued survival of some plant species. For example, some tree cones need to be heated before they open and release their seeds. Chaparral plants, which include manzanita, minimise, which is adenostoma, and scrub oak, require fires before the seeds will germinate. The leaves of these fires include a flammable resin that feeds fires, helping the plants to propagate. Plants such as these depend on wildfires in order to pass through a regular life cycle. So these plants, the manzanita, the chamise, and the scrub oak, require fire before the seeds will germinate. So what that means is, if we have our plant here, if our plant here gives seeds off, right? So for example, we're going to use a deciduous plant here, which we talked about in our plants lesson. So if this plant gives off its seeds in cones, like they usually do, then what will happen is that this cone may not open and release the seeds, will not open and help the seeds to germinate. And that just means that it lets the stem out and causes leaves to come out. So that's not how it works, because it needs fires and heat to open, and the sun's heat isn't enough. The leaves of these plants include, some plants require fire every few years, while others require fire just a few times a century for the species to continue. Wildfires also help to keep ecosystems healthy. They can kill insects and diseases that harm trees. By clearing scrub and underbrush, fires can make way for new grasses, herbs, shrubs, and provide food and habitat for animals and birds. At a low intensity, flames can clean up debris and underbrush on the forest floor, add nutrients to the soil, and open up space to let sunlight through to the ground. That sunlight can nourish smaller plants and give larger trees room to grow and flourish. So what are our types of wildfires? There are 3 main types of wildfires: crown fires, surface fires, and ground fires. And before we even go into their definitions, just by looking at what they are named, we can already know where they're going to be located. So crown fires, so it has the word crown, and a crown is usually placed on the head. So it's probably going to be on the canopy of a tree. The ground fires is obviously probably going to be on the ground and maybe even underground, but the surface fire is going to be on the surface of the ground. So the ground fires are probably going to be underground. So let's go on to the definitions. Crown fires burn trees up their entire length to the top. These are the most intense and dangerous wildland fires. Surface fires burn only surface litter and duff. These are the easiest fires to put out and cause the least damage to the forest. Ground fires sometimes called underground or subsurface fires, occur in deep accumulations of humus, peat, and similar dead vegetations that become dry enough to burn. These fires move very slowly, but can become difficult to fully put out or suppress. Occasionally, especially during prolonged drought, such fires can smolder all winter underground and then emerge at the surface again in spring. So, of course, our crown fire is a combustion of tree canopies ignited from below or spreading from the tree crown to the tree crown. So if you guys remember our wave and tsunami lesson, we remember that the crowns are, crests are the top. So this just means that the fires can actually transfer from crown to crown. So they can transfer from the tops of the trees just like that, because sometimes sparks do go flying, and sometimes if it does get super thick and trees are close together, it can ignite. Surface fires, the combustion of above ground fire fuels, including grass, herbs, leaves, and downed wood. Ground fire, smoldering combustion of compacted organic material, typically slow moving. So the wildfire preventions, how can we stop wildfires? Wildfires can actually happen anywhere, anytime. The chances of wildfires happening is higher when there is little or no rainfall. This makes bushes, grass, and trees dry and easier to burn. High winds can also spread wildfires. Wildfire prevention tips. Preventing wild forest fires is something we must all learn about. Sometimes the very little carelessness, the careless acts, can cause the city a lot, and even lives can be lost. If you look at the causes of wildfires, you will surely have a general idea of what can be done to help. Public education is probably the most important activity in wildfire prevention. People must be educated on how fires are started and the destruction they cause, and the importance of reporting fires, no matter how small or big. Your community might have a designated wildfire season when the risk is particularly high. A drought. Drought is the absence of water for a long period of time at a place where it is considered not normal compared to its usual conditions. Droughts are a period of unexpected rainfall deficit, which results in a shortage of water. Drought hazards develop slowly. There are no clear beginning or end and can affect extensive areas. We can describe a drought scenario to be a relatively long time where there is not enough water to support human, animal, and plant life than there usually is as a result of dry weather. Droughts become an issue when it begins to affect water supply for irrigation, municipal, industrial, energy, and ecosystem functions. People often do not see droughts as natural disasters like tornadoes, hurricanes, or floods, because they do not have the usual immediate destructive ability, but they can be very catastrophic in the long run. Severe droughts can have very serious consequences. The 5 types of droughts. A meteorological drought refers to the extended period of dry weather patterns. Hydrological droughts refer to the low water supply in our rivers, lakes, aquifers, and other reservoirs that often follows meteorological droughts. Agricultural droughts occur when a water shortage significantly damages or destroys agricultural crops. Ecological droughts are the most recently defined type of drought and refers to the ecological damage caused by the lack of soil moisture. Socioeconomic droughts refer to when a water shortage affects the supply and demand of droughts commodities such as waters, food grains, and fish. The types of droughts. Meteorological droughts include reduced precipitation, less water enters the ground, high temperatures and winds, lower relative humidity and greater sunshine, increased water loss from plants, land, and ocean. Agricultural droughts, reduced soil moisture. Crops suffer reduced yields. Hydrological droughts, reduced waters in streams, lakes, reservoirs, etc. Wildlife habitats are stressed. And socioeconomic droughts. Demand on economic goods exceeds supply, strains on community and economy. The impacts increase over time. So what causes droughts? So the most obvious one is dry weather and no rainfall. So lack of rainfall or precipitation. Droughts can occur where there is a lack of expected precipitation, rain and snow. Note that we say expected because the lack of rain alone does not mean a drought. So just because you don't have rain for for a whole year does not mean it's a drought. Some regions can go for months without any rain, and that would be normal. Farmers plant in anticipation of rains, and so when the rains do not come, irrigation infrastructure is absent and agriculture drought occurs. So, for example, in one of the world's driest areas, for example, in Ethiopia, there won't be rain for example, 9 months of the year. That too, if in the months that it does rain, it will be very less. But that doesn't mean it's a drought. It just means that the climate's like that. It's a hot and a very dry climate. So there is no precipitation. But a drought is when, for example, in somewhere with a lot of precipitation, for example, Bangladesh and Hawaii, those have a lot of rain. And if in one case, Hawaii stresses no rain for over 9 months, just like Ethiopia, it's a drought mainly because the climate is not a dry climate, it's a wet climate. So it's unexpected that you won't have rain for a long time in this wet climate. So that's called a drought versus no rain for 9 months in a dry climate. Anyways, back to the lesson. What causes droughts? Surface water flow. Some regions are also well distributed with surface waters, streams and rivers that have their sources from faraway mountains and watersheds. These surface waters may dry out if the flow from their sources upstream is affected. Hydroelectric dams and irrigation systems are some of the economic activities that can reduce the amount of water flowing to other areas downstream. Human factors. Forests and trees play a key role in the water cycle as they help reduce evaporation, store water, and also contribute to atmospheric moisture in the form of transpiration. This means cutting down trees, which is deforestation, in the name of economics will expose surface water to more evaporation. It will also reduce the ability of the ground to hold water and make it easier for desertification to occur. It can set off drying conditions, especially for smaller water bodies. Cutting down trees is known to reduce a forest's watershed potential. Then, of course, we have global warming. So if we all just remember, in every single natural disaster we've talked about in the past 2 weeks, everything is affected by global warming. Human actions have contributed to more greenhouse gases in the atmosphere. As a result, there are warmer temperatures, often resulting in more dryness and bushfires. These conditions also tend to speed up drought conditions. The impact of droughts. The impacts of droughts vary from lack of adequate drinking water, loss of vegetation, loss of farmland, loss of livestock, and loss of life due to famine or dehydration. Drought affects our lives in many different ways because water is such an important part of so many of our activities. We need water to live, and animals and plants do too. We need water to grow the food we eat. We also need water for many different things in our lives, such as washing dishes, cooking, bathing, and swimming or river rafting. Water is also used to help make the electricity we use to run the lights in our houses and the video games you may like to play. When we don't have enough water for these activities because of a drought, many people and many different things will be affected in many different ways. The farmer's crops dying would be the direct impact of drought. the dealer losing money, and all of the other impacts would be the indirect impacts of droughts. Types of drought impacts. Droughts affect all parts of our environment and our communities. Drought impacts are often grouped as economic, environmental, and social impacts. Economic impacts are those impacts of droughts that cost people or businesses monies. Examples of economic impacts. Farmers may lose money if a drought destroys their crops. If a farmer's water supply is too low, the farmer may have to spend more money on irrigation or to drill new wells. Ranchers may have to spend more money on feed and water for their animals, on food and water for their animals. Businesses that depend on farming, like companies that make tractors and food, may lose business when the drought damages crops or livestock. Businesses that sell boats and fishing equipment may not be able to sell some of their goods as well as they do before a drought. Economic impacts continued. Power companies that normally rely on hydroelectric power, electricity that's created from the energy of running water, may have to spend more money on other fuel sources if drought dries up too much of their water supply. The power companies' customers would also have to pay them more. Water companies may have to spend more money on new or additional water supplies. Barges and ships may have difficulty navigating streams, rivers, and canals because of low water levels, which would also affect businesses that depend on water transportation for receiving or sending goods and materials. People might also have to pay for more food. Environmental impacts. Droughts also affect the environment in many different ways. Plants and animals depend on water, just like people. When a drought occurs, their food supply can shrink and their habitat can be damaged. Sometimes the damage is only temporary and their habitat and food supply return to normal when the drought is over. But sometimes droughts' impacts on the environment can last a long time, maybe even forever. Some examples of environmental impacts include the losses or destruction of fish and wildlife habitats, lack of food and drinking water for wild animals, increase in disease in wild animals because of reduced food and water supplies, the migration of wildlife because they have to find more water, increased stress on endangered species or even extinction, lower water levels in reservoirs, lakes, and ponds, loss of wetlands, more wildfire, wind and water erosion of the soils, and poor soil quality. Some social impacts. Social impacts of droughts are ways that droughts affect people's health and safety. Social impacts include public safety, health, conflicts between people when there isn't enough water to go around, and changes in lifestyle. Some examples of social impacts include anxiety or depression about economic losses caused by droughts, health problems related to low water flows and poor water quality, health problems related to dust, loss of human life, threat to public safety from an increased number of forest and range fires, reduced incomes. People may have to move from farms into cities or from one city to another, and also fewer recreational activities. How to minimize the impact of droughts. Unlike a hurricane or tropical storm, no one can keep a watch on when a drought is going to come and when it will end. However, there are many things an individual, community, or government can do to minimize the impact of droughts if it does occur. This is called drought mitigation. Education. It is important that each of us learn how droughts occur and how they affect us. This empowers us to think of solutions and things we can do if we find ourselves in a drought. The government or authorities will also need to educate the people periodically about their environment, climate, weather, and some natural disasters that can happen. We also have to stop pollution. Taking measures to stop all forms of water pollution is important because on the onset of droughts, humans resort to surface waters such as streams and lakes and the like. If those are in great condition, humans can depend on them for drinking and irrigation until things improve. If they are polluted or contaminated and used unsafe for any kind of use, it makes the problem even worse. Water conservation and storage. Water is very precious and a scarce commodity everywhere in the world, and humans need it to use water wisely as such. Even if there is water available, it is important because practice makes us cope better even when there's even when there's a shortage. Also, preserving water leaves enough to be stored in dams, reservoirs, and even turned into ponds. If we use water wisely at all times, more people will be available to us. More water will be available to us and to plants and wildlife when a drought happens. We can lose a lot of water doing simple everyday tasks. Did you know that turning off the water while you brush your teeth can save more than 100 of gallons a month? If you have a leaky faucet that drips, can add up to 300 gallons of water wasted a month. So why is it important to conserve water? To prepare for future droughts, to guard against rising costs and potential conflict, to preserve our environment, to strengthen communities, and to make water available for recreational purposes such as swimming, pools, and other games such as that. How to save water. Water your yard and outdoor plants early or late in the day to reduce evaporation. Use a shut-off nozzle on your hose. Use plants that require less water. Use a low-flow shower head. Wash only full loads. Get an Energy Star labeled washing machine. Mulch around plants to hold water in the soil. Take shorter showers. 5 minutes or less is the best. Turn off the water while soaping hands and brushing teeth. Turn off sink faucets while scrubbing dishes and pots. Install new toilets that use less than 1.6 gallons per flush. And put faucet aerators on sink faucets. And lastly, use a broom, not a hose, to clean driveways and walkways. Okay, everyone, that was today's lessons on wildfires and droughts. I will post the quiz link in the chat so you guys can take it. And after finishing it, come back because after we review our quiz, we will have a game. Okay, everyone, let's go over today's quiz. So, your class. So let's go. If you haven't, you can type your answers in the chat with A, B, C, or D. Wildfires are different than house fires, mainly because, so we already know that wildfires occur in the natural area, and wildfires burn out of control in a natural area. People who purposely set fire to other people's properties are called arsonists. And firemen are used to stop fires, which is not an ingredient to start a fire, carbon dioxide, because carbon dioxide is actually used to stop fires. Which of the following is true? Fields with high rainfall and high humidity tend to catch fire. False. Temperature doesn't matter in the burning of fire. False. Temperature always matters. Wildfires travel uphill instead of downhill. That's true. Greenhouse gases are causing more wildfires because there is more fuel. A tool used in firebreak is called a Pulaski. The other three are just gibberish words, except for most is part of a real word. Wildfires help this ecosystem's plant to germinate seeds. A chaparral. Those are like in Baja California, those like kind of dry, but not too dry. Wildfires help to kill insects and disease that harm trees. True. Match the wildfires to its definition. Ground fires, remember, they're already at the top, so yes. Surface fires are on the surface. Ground fires are underneath, so the humus and over here. A drought is an absence of rain of water in a long period of time, but with different conditions. Match the type of drought to what it refers to. Agricultural drought, remember that's with crops. So here, water shortage damages crop growth. Hydrological drought, we already know, is with water. Meteorological drought is with weather periods. And ecological drought is because of the lack of soil and moisture. And socioeconomic is because of water, crops, and fish. Which of the following is not an economical impact on drought? So remember, this is all with businesses and money. That's spending more. That's already economical. Spending, businesses, depending on farming, that's economical. Moving, that's social. Migration of wildlife occurs mainly because they need to travel to more water. Okay, you got everything correct. So we know for sure that today's checking was a success. Good job with that. For those who typed your answers in the chat. Now I will stop sharing my screen for a quick second so I can tell you guys who got the highest scores. Okay, I'll just quickly say that nobody got 100%, but I think that somebody was super duper close. A couple of you were super close. So if you got a 15 or higher, I'll call out your name. So Kartika, you got 16. Nice job. Adam got a 16 as well. Good job. Atharv got an 18. Very nice. Pratya got a 15. Good job. But Kartikeya got a 19. So that was the highest score. Kartikeya, good job. Good job with that, Kartikeya. Okay, so you got our highest score for today. Congratulations, Kartikeya. Now let's move on to today's game. So we don't have, so instead of a demonstration, today we instead have a game. So how this game works is we have three people here. Person A, person B, and person C. Now, in the next slides, I will tell you a quick fact about what each person does. So what they do relating to their daily work and their daily routines. But you have to tell me which one saves the most water, or which one is best. Now, what I want you to do is I will also tell you a number of points, 1, 2, or 3. And I would like you to add that up to see how many points you have, to see how good you are with saving water. So you can already type, after we finish this game, you can type what your score was at the end. So person A has a 2 to 3 minute shower. Person B has a 10 to 20 minute shower. Person C has a 30-second shower. So who is the best person? Who is saving the most water? So you can type your answers in the chat. Of course, you can type your answers in the chat. A, B, or C? Who is doing the best shower? Okay, so a lot of you are saying C, a lot of you are saying A. Okay, so if you chose A, I would like you to add 2 points. A gets 2 points. B gets 3 points. C gets, A gets 1 point. B gets 3 points and C gets 2 points. So why is a 2 to 3 minute shower better than a 30-second shower? Well, first of all, if you do take a shower, you always have to lather yourself with soap, and you have to take enough time that you can lather yourself with soap, sometimes shampoo, and always clean your body super well. So you cannot do that super fast in a 30-second shower. It's always good to have around 2 to 3 minutes. So right now, keep how many you have in mind. Keep how many points. Remember, A is 1, B is 3, and C is 2. Next is plants. Person A grows roses and other flowers. Person B grows succulents and cactuses. And person C grows vines and ferns. So please type your answers in the chat. Which one saves the most, is the best, saves the most water? Okay, so already, I'll tell you this for sure. Ferns soak up the most water of everything. And we don't even need to talk about the other, the A and C, but we already know that growing succulents and cactuses always is best, as they do save water. I'm not saying you should not grow roses and other flowers and things like that. It's just, out of these people, person B saves the most water. And for a good reason. So if you chose A, please add 2 points. If you chose B, add 1 point. And if you chose C, add 3 points. So right now, let's continue on. Now we have how they water the plants. Person A waters plants every day in midday because it might dry up the plants. Person B waters plants every day early morning. And person C waters plants every day in the evening. So in the chat, please type who is the best and saves the most money. Who saves the most water? Okay, so we have a lot of mixed answers, but I can already cancel off A because, as we talked before, watering plants in midday is bad because they don't have that water needed to moisturize before. So they have a higher chance of drying up even if you pour water. Now, C and B sound like the correct answer. Both of them are correct. It's just that B is better than C by a little bit. Why? Because by watering plants in B early morning, what you'll do is you'll get it ready for midday, and it also gets the necessary water. C, planting in the evening, only gives water through the evening, and that's not the best idea, as it doesn't help, and your plants might start dying earlier than plant B. So add your points. If you chose person A, add 3 points. If you chose person B, add 1 point. If you chose person C, add 2 points. Next one, they wash different dishes. Person A washes his dishes every day. Person B washes dishes every other day. Person C doesn't even wash their dishes. So please choose person A, person B, or person C. Who saves the most water and in a good way? Okay, so all of you said B because, of course, B is the correct answer. A couple of you said A, but it's not. That's wrong. But B, most of you said A because why A is wrong. Of course, you are not having a big load of dishes to wash. So that's also a waste of water. B is correct. Washing dishes every other day, you can load up your dishwasher to the most. And in C, why doesn't washing different dishes the best? Why? Because not only is your dishes getting extremely dirty, it's getting bacteria on it, which if you eat it because you don't clean it and your food goes on there, you can actually die and fall in disease. So if you chose A, you get 2 points. If you chose B, you get 1 point. And if you chose C, you get 3 points. And lastly, we have how long they shower and how it works. So person A keeps the shower on for 2 minutes to warm up before using it. Person B uses the extra cold water in gardening from the shower. And person C just throws the water outside from the shower. So please choose A, B, or C. So of course, it's B because you're using that extra cold water, which is used before the water actually heats up, for a good use, which is in gardening, rather than just wasting it. So the first one, keeping the shower on for 2 minutes before warming up, you're just wasting that water. Person C throws the water outside, but sometimes if you throw it outside, it might just be in weeds, for example, and that might help it grow, but it can also help with keeping the soil moisturized and with the the minerals needed to grow plants. So if you chose A, please add 3 points, B, add 1 point, and C, add 2. Now, I would like everyone to add up their number and type it in the chat. Okay then. So for those, so you have a point between 5 and 15. 5 and 5 through 15, including 5 and 15. If your point is between 5 and if your point is between 5 and 8, remember that you got person B. If your choice was between 8 and 11, remember that you are person A. And if you got from 12 and above, you are person C. Now, person B did get got the lowest score. So person B saves the most water. He could change that by taking a shorter shower, of course. Person A got the second, the middle one. He got 11 points. That's not bad, but he can get way better. And person C is the worst. He should definitely change his water usage as his total points was 12. So we have 7, 11, and 12. If you guys got anything from 5 through 8, congratulations that you are a good person at saving water. You have the perfect education and you have good memory. You are ready for using it in real life. If you got it between 9 and 12, that's okay. You can 9 and 11. You can 5 through 8 includes number 8. If you got 9 through 11, including 9 and 11, then you can do better, but you're not too bad. But if you got anything above 12 and above, then you need to find a way to try to save more water. Okay, then that was today's class. Thank you everyone for joining today's class, and I'll see you all next week. Bye guys.